Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where yesterday something really funny and telling happened when it comes to the world of fanboy film reporting. Now, all the time we see people make mistakes, right, in their attempts to make a headline, right, and to get the most clicks. I think, for instance, one of the most infamous ones is that report, and I'll be polite to the person who reported it, but someone said, oh, guaranteed, George Miller of Mad Max Fury Road fame is going to direct Man of Steel 2. Made headlines the world over, and then, of course, days later, Warner Brothers announced that Man of Steel was indefinitely on hold. So we're used to seeing that, and of course, there are our most infamous sources that do this all the time. But again, anyway, we're used to seeing this in that level, I guess you could say, of reporting. But yesterday, it happened with two of the industry trades, Deadline versus The Hollywood Reporter, and that was fascinating to behold. So what went down is that in the morning, Deadline, I guess trying to get a scoop, reported that Mariah Carey would be joining the voice cast of the Lego Batman movie as Commissioner Gordon. A juicy headline, to be sure, which was picked up by multiple outlets. But it was so crazy that one of their, actually, I would say their chief competitor, it really is Deadline versus The Hollywood Reporter, and then the Wrap is always trying to get in there and be like, us too, we're also competing in this matchup of Hollywood trades. And I think to some extent they are, but really it's Deadline versus The Hollywood Reporter. Variety also somewhere in the mix, but Variety and Deadline have the same parent company, and they're still, I think, sorting out who does what. So they're not even really a part of the conversation. That's what happens when you disappear behind a paywall for years. It's very hard to come out from behind it. So anyway, Hollywood Reporter was like, that is a crazy headline. We better look into it. So they did, and they were able to refute the Mariah Carey as Commissioner Gordon headline and say she's voicing the mayor. So that was a really interesting thing to see go down. And I think it isn't totally without reason that Mariah Carey could voice Commissioner Gordon, because my first reaction was she's voicing Barbara Gordon, because as we've seen in Batman Beyond, Barbara, eventually goes legit and takes over her father's mantle as the new Commissioner Gordon. But it was really funny to see two Hollywood trades stuck in the same kind of situation that we've seen fanboy news sites, do that dance for so long. But I'm curious, what do you think? Also, people highlighted that Ralph Fiennes, M as of late in the new Bond movies, is going to do the voice of Alfred. I think this is a very interesting cast, the Lego movie, the way it's coming together. I love Will Arnett as Batman. It was one of my favorite parts of the Lego movie. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. And so I'm very excited to see where they take that when they can go all on its own. And also they've discussed that it's going to kind of look back over all the different incarnations of Batman. So that means it's going to have meta humor, which of course is a comic book fan's and a cinephile's best friend. So I'm very excited about that. But I think today what I want to focus on in the comment section, besides the way that movie is shaping up, is what do you think about the way reporting, what it's become, this who gets there first, like a feeding frenzy, to the point where you have people, feeding us stuff that's not actually food, right? That's, that you bite on it and you're like, this is plastic, wait a minute. So I just think it's really interesting, and to see, again, the trades sucked into that makes it even more interesting. All right, so that's the first story of the day. Now, the second story of the day is that the Baywatch movie is going to, of course, star Dwayne Johnson and Zac Efron in one of the greatest pairings of all time. I'm already calling it. I think it has the potential to be another 21 Jump Street, which of course is what the studio is hoping. But anyway, now they have to cast their female lead, and it's a Baywatch movie, and you're going to see a theme in the casting here, the casting choices, all bikini-ready actresses. But to be fair, both Zac Efron and Dwayne Johnson make a lot of money taking off their own shirts. So it's totally fair. But this is where I think it becomes problematic. The Rock and Zac Efron, I think, are very good at being comedic and being more than just shirtless wonders, right? So I would hope that they would get an actress who could do the same, who could pull off the swimsuit, the Baywatch part of the equation, but also go toe-to-toe with them in a comedic sensibility. I talked about this recently with my trailer review for Dirty Grandpa, and how pleased I was to see Aubrey Plaza in the cast, who was very funny and also definitely fit the, bikini-ready label. I think she looked great, but I think even more importantly, she was able to compete or contribute to the film at the same level as her male co-stars, and that's ideal. So you tell me if you feel that's the same situation with who they potentially are casting in Baywatch. So the first one is Alexandra Daddario, who of course Dwayne Johnson co-starred with in San Andreas over the summer. She was very good in that movie, but also if you've seen her on True Detective, she had a very small role as Woody Harrelson's mistress, and it was a lot of nudity. But anyway, so she's okay with that, I guess, is the takeaway there. So she's willing to go all the way. Then Ashley Benson from Pretty Little Liars, Nina Dobrev from The Vampire Diaries. Nina Dobrev is very good at self-promotion, but it really hasn't enabled her to make the jump to the big screen. But I think she's so aggressive. I think you should factor that into her casting here. I mean, that's someone who will call the director. You might know this story, for instance, one of the reasons that Kate Winslet got the role of Rose in Titanic is that she sent James Cameron a rose saying, a rose from your rose. And he was like, oh, I'm smitten, I love it. And, I wonder if guys can sway casting in the same way. But anyway, if you're a really aggressive actress, you can maybe push the odds in your favor a little bit more. So then also Alexandra Shipp, who's going to be the new Storm in X-Men Apocalypse. She also had a very small role in Straight Outta Compton as Ice Cube's wife. And I thought she made an impression on me there. I thought she did a good job. So I'm a little partial to her here. Shelley Henning from Teen Wolf. I don't watch that show, so if anyone watches Teen Wolf, what do you think of Shelley Henning? Bianca Santos from The Duff, obviously one of the friends of Mae Whitman's character, who she was like, "Are you duffing me?" And they're like, "We don't know what you're talking about." So anyway, and then finally Denise Tons from Big Time Rush, who I've never heard of. So I think that, again, bikini-ready actresses, don't really know if any of them can keep up with Dwayne Johnson and Zac Efron. So it makes me feel like the role doesn't require them to. So that's fine. Every comedy needs a straight person, but I would prefer to see someone like Rose Byrne in Neighbors or Aubrey Plaza in Dirty Grandpa, who's able to, again, be one of the group, but still fulfill the requirements of a leading lady by Hollywood standards. That's a whole nother battle to fight, another discussion. And also, we can't get upset because we're demanding the same of our male stars, so as long as it's an even terrain, I'm cool with it. And I still think this movie looks very good, although I do have to say, I think if they're going to go with this kind of casting for the female lead, it might hurt it just a tad with its appeal to female audiences. 21 Jump Street, of course, who does everyone remember from that? Jillian Bell from the second one, and that's actually given her a nice launching pad for her film career, and she's of course in the upcoming The Night Before, the Seth Rogen Christmas movie. So I think the producers should be a little bit more careful about making sure they appeal to the female audience. So I'm curious, female audience members, what do you think of this casting? Male audience members, what do you think of the casting? Write your thoughts down below. Now, for the third story of the day, Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's back still. His ability, talk about being aggressive, is really, I think, to some degree, admirable. At one point you have to be like, when is he beating a dead horse? But based on the fact that this new movie that he's making has sold all its distribution rights worldwide, it's not dead yet. The horse isn't dead yet. It's still got a little life left in it. So luckily for him, Darren Aronofsky is a name also associated with this film he's making. But he's not directing, he's producing. So I think what you're really seeing here is Darren Aronofsky trying to expand his portfolio and, also his sources of income, right? You've seen Brad Pitt do it, you've seen Leonardo DiCaprio. It's where you largely go into producing in addition to the other role that you were made famous for in Hollywood. And that, expands your footprint, it ensures longevity with your career, right? Like maybe Darren Aronofsky one day doesn't want to direct anymore. Maybe he wants to retire. He can still produce movies, and that's a little bit obviously of an easier gig. It depends on how intense a producer you are. But, again, it's a smart thing to do. I think that anyone who's doing very well in Hollywood wants to take on as many different roles, wear as many different hats as they can, and also on as many different pictures as they can to increase their output and then also their intake of income. And also, again, just their footprint in the Hollywood industry. Because when you're producing a movie, you don't have to be on set. So Darren Aronofsky can, really create more films. So it's called 478, and that's the name of the flight that Arnold Schwarzenegger's wife and daughter are on, and they're killed in a midair collision. And the log line is that he exacts revenge on the person responsible. So at first, my first reaction was, oh, it's like, Darren Aronofsky's trying to make his own Taken. Look out, Luc Besson. Of course, I'm talking about the Liam Neeson movies, which have been incredibly profitable, not just for Luc Besson, but Liam Neeson as well. That's just an amazing franchise, especially with the rate of return, because they're so inexpensive to make. And they make an incredible amount of money. So it's a very impressive business model. So at first I was like, okay, Darren Aronofsky and Arnold Schwarzenegger thinking, why can't we do the same thing? And I think there's an argument to be made there. But then recently, of course, we've had a lot of tragic news in the real world about what's happening to airplanes and airplane security, especially the horrible news of what happened to that flight from going to Russia with so many Russian citizens on board out of Egypt, and the security breaches there potentially. So then I started to think, and I was like, well, who's he going to fight? Like the inept bureaucracy, because you see all these horror stories, also here in the United States, about lack of security with the TSA, lack of security about who works at airports, and you're just like, this is a mess. So I was like, that's a lot more serious. That's not like the coolness of Taken, but perhaps that's a more timely, important message, right? And also with Darren Aronofsky's involvement, it made me start to feel, well, maybe this is an emotional thriller, right? Where he's going after the person who was the bureaucrat who was responsible for what happened to his wife and daughter. So I think that if it's whoever Schwarzenegger's character holds responsible is going to set the tone of the movie. So I'm curious, which direction would you go in? Straight usual Taken movie, right, where he hunts the bad guys? Or do you think that it would be interesting to see Arnold Schwarzenegger in a more similar role, like what he did with Maggie, trying to go outside his comfort zone, be more of an emotional thriller where he dramatically goes after the system, right, for not doing what they're supposed to do to keep people safe? And then also my other question for you is, will you watch an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie? Because I know a lot of people are always quick to defend Arnold Schwarzenegger. And, I try to separate how I feel about him personally from his work. And I wanted to like Terminator Genisys, but it was just that awful. But I'm curious because, even though everyone defends him, you're clearly not going to see his movies because they're not doing well. They're doing horribly. So the question is, will you see 478, or will you continue to defend or not defend Schwarzenegger, but universally nobody goes to see his movies? All right, so those are the three stories of the day. Now I have a really fun question from Shaylin Fritzler. And Shaylin is a frequent BTT viewer and commenter, always appreciated, but she did something really cute to get my attention, so I couldn't ignore it. So Shaylin, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, but Shaylin said, cheese puff. Did that get your attention? Good. Great. So, and it definitely did. I was like, cheese puff? Why'd someone write cheese puff on this video? And then I was like, well played, Shaylin, well played. So she said, Grace, could Hollywood ever make Percy Jackson good? The movies with Logan Lerman were awful, although his performance wasn't his fault, and I love the books so much. Could they, with the right team, reboot it, or should it be made for television? Please, 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 all caps, answer my question, and I hope you have a great day. Smiley face. Well, thank you, Shaylin. Thank you for such a fun and inventive question, both in the way you got it in front of me and just the question itself, and I hope that you're having a great day as well. But as for your question, I kind of liked the Percy Jackson movies. They were obviously no Harry Potter, but I thought they were fun, and I thought that, of course, Logan Lerman was very good in them. And I think some people like them because obviously they made a sequel, but they're not going to make any more Percy Jacksons, and I don't think Logan Lerman has any interest in returning because he's trying to become more of an adult actor. But that said, there's still kind of a stink of failure in the Percy Jackson movies, which is why you're worried about it, obviously. And I think that it's going to be difficult for someone to revisit that material anytime soon. I mean, for instance, Disney is trying to move aggressively forward with Artemis Fowl. I mean, after Harry Potter, there's no shortage of magical little boys and girls that Hollywood can, new ones, fresh ones that Hollywood can adapt for the big screen. So it's very unlikely that anyone is going to revisit something that didn't work, especially so recently. So someday, maybe, Shaylin, if you go into the film industry, maybe one day you could potentially resurrect this. Although, I have to say, considering the stink of failure on it, I don't know if you'd want to risk your career doing that. And so that's another obstacle for this franchise, that you just, even if people care about it and love the property, you're like, do I really want to risk my entire career to fight a battle that seems unwinnable? So I would be curious, Shaylin, down below, if you could write what you think, as a fan of the Percy Jackson novels, that they got wrong with the movies? What didn't they capture about the property that made it sell so well as a book, but didn't obviously translate to the big screen? So I think that's a question for Shaylin specifically, and also any fans of Percy Jackson, who feel that the movies didn't do the brand justice. But as for revisiting it, potentially television, I think that would be its best bet, maybe an animated series. I think that it would be very, very unlikely, unless maybe some underground, maybe someone did an unsanctioned internet video, like a fan film, that could maybe bring it back. Maybe if a comic book, maybe if some other medium were to make Percy Jackson pertinent again, on the mind of pop culture, a Hollywood studio would be like, okay, I'll take a look at it. But I think just right now, as I said, there are just too many other properties, and I don't even know if Percy Jackson novels are still coming out, now that I think about it off the top of my head. So I just think that I'm sorry to deliver bad news to you, Shaylin, and that's why I'm a little bit halting in my delivery here, but I think at the end of the day, it will be a very long time, although never say never, because the Golden Compass, actually, now that I think about it, is going to television, and that movie was absolutely horrible, and it was a total failure. So somebody resurrected that. So maybe if that does well, someone will maybe take a look at Percy Jackson. So if you want to see a Percy Jackson TV show, make sure you watch the Golden Compass television show if it ever actually makes it to the small screen, even though the deals are in place. Just because you have a deal in place doesn't mean the deal will come to fruition. It's a long road to finally seeing your product up on a screen. But very interesting indeed. So I guess there is some hope for you, Shaylin, and that lies within the Golden Compass. But it'll take a while. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and that viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.